John LeBang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John LeBang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John LeBang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
And welcome back. We've turned on the Banger Cam, so for those of you who are tuned in via Facebook or YouTube or one of the other outlets that are carrying the video feed, we'd like to welcome you. I'm your host, John LeBang. You're watching The John LeBang Show, a show that's carried on over 40 stations in 5 countries. So I want to talk about and give you my review of the latest Marvel movie, Captain Marvel. You know, there was a lot of talk about what was going to happen in this movie and how it was going to be received, if there was a political message behind it. And I went in because I'm a big Marvel fan, but they have done an excellent job for the most part on my favorite characters, which happen to be Captain America and Iron Man. Carol Danvers was never a big hero in my world. But I understand with the political climate and all, they want to, especially after how DC put out such a great movie with Wonder Woman, that Marvel would want to get in on the action. So I went to see the movie. I wasn't that excited about it because of the character, and but there were some good parts to it, and I'd like to focus on those first before I get into the more the parts that I might not have enjoyed as much. And then after that, we'll get into spoilers. So anybody who doesn't want to hear the spoilers, we'll give you a little bit of warning, and then you can take off and then come back after you've seen the movie, and then you can pick up from there. And then we can get your input on how you feel about what we discussed here about Captain Marvel. So let's go into what I really liked about the movie. First of all, the Stan Lee intro was awesome. It was classy. It was a great way to start the movie. It gets you feeling good about what you're going to be seeing in the next 2 hours or whatever. I thought Sam Jackson as Nick Fury was very good. I was going in expecting a little bit more of a die-hard kind of Sam Jackson, but we got it was Jackson, but it wasn't quite the hard-edged Jackson that I thought we would get. But I still liked him. In fact, I thought he was one of the best parts of the movie. Now, I also liked Annette Bening as the Supreme Intelligence. And I don't want to get into spoilers too much, so that's all I'll say as far as that is concerned. I have to say, I do not like Brie Larson. I didn't think she was very good. The editing of the movie was clunky. It looked like Brie was having a really hard time. Either she doesn't run very well or she was having a hard time running in her suit. And the filming of that was very awkward. The fighting scenes were filmed in a way that made Brie look clunky and stiff, and she didn't look natural. I would think costume design has a lot to do with that, but the filming in itself should have picked that up, and they should have changed some of the angles so that it wasn't so apparent. I mean, there's not much you can do with an origin movie these days. A lot of it was predictable. In fact, my buddy Keezy, if you're watching, I hit 3 of them pretty well, didn't I? I told you 3 things would probably happen, and that was just by the trailers. And that was another problem with this movie is the trailers, in my opinion, didn't do the movie justice. And we'll get into why once we get into spoilers. But as far as the last 4, we'll say origin movies, for Marvel, I think this is the weakest of the bunch. Black Panther was better. Spider-Man Homecoming was just far superior to this. And Doctor Strange, I still think is a little bit better than this movie overall. But that's going to be about it for what I can tell you without spoiling any more. So I'm going to give you maybe a C minus for a movie ranking. If you want to scale 1 to 10, it's probably a 6. It's on the bottom half of all the Marvel movies. I'm not going to say it's the worst Marvel movie, but it's definitely not one of the top 5 or 6. It's not in the top 10, and I think it's probably, without actually sitting down and ranking everything individually, it's probably somewhere between 12 and 17 in there as far as how good the Marvel movie is. But you can't blame that all on one thing, because it's an origin story. There's not much you can do with an origin story. But what you could have done is either design the suits a little bit better. I thought the CGI was a little and we'll get into some of that a little bit later too, because I thought it was, at times, it rivaled Black Panther's bad parts of their CGI. And maybe because they didn't have the budget of Infinity War or the next Marvel movie, because that's where they're pumping all their money into, rightfully so, that they didn't have the budget to just clean that CGI up perfectly. Okay, that's it. That's all I can tell you for the non-spoilery part of this video or this audio. I'm going to count to 5. And if you're still listening, you want to hear what I'm going to have to say about the bad parts of this movie and the individual plot points that fill in plenty of holes, because there are a lot of holes, plot holes that have been in the MCU that were filled in with this movie. I have to give it credit for that. Whether I like the plot hole and how they fixed it or how they changed it a little bit is another story, and we'll get into that. So I'm counting down right now. You've had plenty of warning. If you're still listening after I count down from 5, then that's your bad. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's get into this. We've heard a lot of things going on politically. You know, people on both sides of the issue, the social justice warriors, the people on the other side, you know, the alt-righters there, everybody arguing about the nature of this movie. I believe it was Brie Larson, but if it wasn't Brie Larson, I apologize. I vaguely heard about this. But somebody said that this movie wasn't made for men. This was definitely a Disney sci-fi fairy tale, if nothing else. It fit the Disney mold. It fit the sci-fi mold because they were touching on little things of Star Trek and maybe even a little Star Wars in there. And then it had the fairy tale to it. And we'll get into the fairy tale as we go along here. It did fill a lot of plot holes. There's a bunch of things that, Keezy, if you're still watching, you're going to chime in, I hope, and say, yep, you called that. So on the dislikes, well, I talked about a little bit, but now we're going to get in detail. So here we have Carol Danvers, and the whole story. You know, the other pilot, I can't remember her name, and I apologize. Again, I'm not a huge Carol Danvers fan. I never really got into her in the comic books, so I don't know a great deal about her character as far as everything, but I've done my research about her, and I know that the stories that she was a part of that I read, she was a very minor character or wasn't a very interesting character. This was girl power movie all day, and that's fine, I guess. That's fine if you want girl power movie. If that is more important than producing a well-produced, no plot holes movie, because as I said before, it filled some plot holes, but it made a whole bunch of other ones. For it retconned some things, might be the better way of putting it. I think it was the friend of Carol Danvers. They were complaining that they can't fly in combat. Women aren't allowed to fly in combat. They're complaining about this. But these women were lucky enough to fly top secret vehicles that can go into space, mind you. They can go into space. That is led, the project was led by an alien. The whole thing was derived, the energy source of these vehicles were derived from the Tesseract. And this gives her power in the end. This is how it's, the power is explained to us. And that's a bad thing. Women aren't allowed to go into combat, but hell, here you go. You can fly the most top secret project we ever had, powered by the Tesseract. Now, I'm asking pilots, I don't know how many pilots are out there that are listening, but if you had an option, if the Air Force gave you an option, fly top secret space ship powered by some unknown source, or fly combat missions where you get to shoot down MiGs every once in a while and maybe an Iraqi jet or something, which one would you want to do? Be the space guy or be the guy just blowing things up? So, I'm just me. I would be like, well, give me the top secret one. So, here we have, they're complaining that they can't be in combat, but they're flying the cooler mission. They have the cooler job, the more important job in some people's opinion. They get to work with the Tesseract. Speaking of the Tesseract, that's basically where Carol Danvers gets her powers. The engine's power is derived from the Tesseract. The engine gets blown up. That power surges out, envelops her, and infuses her with this cosmic power. Doesn't kill her. She's infused with it. When the Red Skull got touched it, oh well, he disappeared. He had super strength. She had no powers. Red Skull had super strength because he was part of the Secret Soldier program. That's why he had the Red Skull and all that. He gets taken off and he's flying off the Vormir until Thanos comes and hangs out with him. But Carol Danvers gets infused with the power. Okay, hey, it's happened before where beings have been infused with the power of a cosmic gem. Okay, we get it. Because we've got Scarlet Witch, which she's a regular member of the Avengers, not new. She's been around for 3 movies now. I think 3 movies. Wow. Yet she doesn't get a solo movie. But whatever. She's gone. Wipe her off the face, poof, gone. And bring in Carol Danvers, who gets her powers from the same type thing. Different gem, but it's the same type thing, Now, Carol's infused with the power. She's been given all this new blood because apparently blood helps you get superpowers or helps you do something. I don't know why you would infuse them with blood. Make, whatever. But that's a plot point. Now she's stronger than Thor. I mean, she's strong, although she's being told to hold back, That's another plot point. Jan Ra, all movies, like, no, don't use your powers. Don't use your powers. Hold them, control them. Whatever. To people with great power, it needs good responsibility or something, right? I know I hacked that, but it's a joke. So he's telling her not to use the power. Now, if you want to kill the Skrulls, I'm just saying, if you want to kill the Skrulls, wouldn't you want your most powerful weapon going nuts on them and wiping out everything if you knew she could do that? No, hold it back, man. Hold it back. Don't worry about it. No big deal. No big deal. We don't want you to use it. Use a gun. Oh, wait. She's the only one. Did you notice that? She's the only one who doesn't use a gun or a weapon of some sort when they're going to that one little planet where she gets kidnapped at. Nope. superpower girl that you can't use her power. She can't use her power, but, she can go in there with